Good evening and welcome to a series of live interviews with some of the Theatre by QE2 entertainers and comedians. Thank you to Theatre by QE2, Big Fish Comedy, book my show, and H2 Productions. Thank you, Nigel, for pressing the buttons as ever and producing this. Now, don't forget, every night we're giving away free tickets for future productions at the Theatre by QE2. I'll have another quiz question for you in just a few minutes. Now, before we go any further, I want to give you a bit of background before tonight's show. Lonnie Donegan invented really a new form of music in the early mid-50s. It was called or known as Skiffle. It's kind of a mix of jazz. There was some blues, there was some folk, bit of rock and roll, early rock and roll in there. And it was usually performed with a mixture of homemade and improvised, and not the most expensive musical instruments. Now, Skiffle was at the forefront of the early days of youth culture in the 50s. And to give you a bit of context, Lonnie Donegan had 31 UK top 30 hits, 3 number ones. He was the first British male singer, and I remember this was the 50s, ever to have 2 US top 10 hits. Now, our guest tonight is his son, familiar in name to many and probably very familiar to fans of the UK version of The Voice. And we're going to be talking about that and his music over the next half an hour or so. First of all, here's a flavour of what Peter Donegan does.
Sweeter than a margarita on a summer night, with just the right amount of sugar and a little bit of kick on the side. Toes deep in the sand, it's where the fish are smiling. And for once, don't give a damn, sees me throwing back my head. The sky's bluer than blue, the grass is greener too. That's about the sweetest cliche I've ever said. 'Cause you're sweeter than a margarita on a summer night, with just the right amount of sugar and a little bit of kick on the side. Yeah, I said you hold me up when I get cold. All I need to soothe my soul, sweeter than a margarita on a summer night.
Peter Donegan, do you know what? It's really good to have you on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and thank you very much. How are you?
Not bad, actually. That's a song from your what's known as your lockdown sessions that I was listening to some of your tunes last night, but that's a song that kind of transports you away from having to stay at home all day.
Well, that was the idea. I mean, we wrote that a few years ago at the Chris Difford Songwriting Retreat. It was me and a couple of other really great songwriters. And believe it or not, we wrote that in about 2 hours, because we weren't given that long to write that day. But we just pulled a title out of the hat, which I'd had in my sort of list of stored title ideas, and went for it. And it turned out to be one of my favorite tunes from that session.
Do you know what? Is that one of the things with writing songs? Sometimes it's the simple stuff that comes together the quickest.
Yeah, I mean, songwriting is one of those things. You just write when the moment comes to you. And that's what makes it the easiest, because if it's like the guy who sits down to write down his, best-selling novel, eventually never does, because he's sitting there deliberately to write a best-selling novel. It's not going to happen. You just write, with the passion and the ideas that come to you, and that's normally what connects the most.
I want to talk to you quite a lot about your music and listen to a lot of your music in this, but I want to get there by way of, obviously, your dad. We can't not mention him. He really was, and I'm not trying to flatter you here, he was kind of responsible for kickstarting rock and roll. I think for most people, particularly in England, I mean, he influenced a very young John Paul Ringo. I think that's fair to say. He was hugely successful and influential. I know that you weren't there during the 50s when that was all happening for him, but what a musical household to grow up in that must have been.
Oh yeah, definitely. And just to say, I mean, obviously, you're not just flattering me; you're flattering Dad. Which is deserved,
Sure.
like you said. I mean, I'm extremely proud of Dad for everything that you've just mentioned. People like Jimmy Page are still touting Dad. And Roger Daltrey, Brian May, all of these people who wouldn't have picked up a guitar if it wasn't for Dad, because Dad did literally change the British music industry when, unbeknownst to him, they released his version of Rock Island Line.
Yeah, I
And they
mean
released it
that's
back
an
in, was it
old song,
56?
isn't it? Yeah, it was certainly mid-50s. I mean, that's a song that's been around since I think the late 20s, maybe early 30s?
Yeah, well, Leadbelly brought it out originally, because the
Mm.
Lomax brothers went out and they were recording, people working on the railroads and in the prisons, all of the African American then slave workers and prisoners, because they thought it was very important to hold on to these very valuable pieces of what was American history. And they put all of those into the Library of Congress. Dad listened to them at what was it was the building that had access to all of the stuff for the Library of Congress, which was next to the old American Embassy in London, and fell in love with all these tunes. And they were started putting them into the set, and you know somebody told Dad one day in '56, because he recorded it in '54. So 2 years later, it became a
Right.
hit. They said, you're at the top of the hit parade with this, as it was called then. And he says, "Nah, you're having me on." And they said, "No, no, look in the paper." He's like, "No, it must be a misprint." And it wasn't. It was a massive thing. And he was like, "All right then." And it was a song that wasn't even supposed to be in the sessions originally, because it was then the Chris Barber Jazz Band, and they'd
Mm.
split off from what was the Ken Collier Jazz Men. And a funny story. I mean, the best thing to do is to buy Billy Bragg's book, Roots, Radicals, and Rockers, and How Skiffle Changed the World. Um, and that is a big read, but it is a totally unbiased sort of historical document about what happened in those days. And it was the Ken Collier Jazz Men. They'd gone into the studio to record their second album, uh, and because the band was a democratic system, so that everything had to go through a vote. Ken didn't like my dad because he was too cheeky, which is
Right.
pretty accurate, So he wanted to sack my dad out of the band. While Chris said, yeah, he is too cheeky. He says, but we're a democracy. He says, so we have to put it to a vote. So they voted to kick Ken out of his own band instead. So in the studio recording these sessions, it had to be an impactful session, because obviously the Ken County Jazz Band had a great reputation. So Chris Barber had to come out with a better reputation to warrant what had happened, and they didn't have enough songs. So they said, well, how about some of the songs from that Skiffle set, which we do, which has become very popular? And Rock On Online was one of those tracks that was picked, and the rest is history.
But it really is, isn't it? I mean, he took that and kind of sped it up quite a lot, but it kind of ignited that craze for skiffle, I suppose. People, he got the top of the hit parade, but it was just really a name for music not made on expensive instruments, kind of a makeshift thing in terms of its ethic and obviously the instruments you were playing. You couldn't. I'm guessing in 1955, you probably couldn't buy a Fender guitar in England. It'd be very difficult to get one. The Strat had only been out for a year at
Yeah.
that point. So, you, as a kid, were you aware of just how much of an innovator your dad was?
No, not at first, because first and foremost, Dad's
Mm.
dad.
Sure,
He's the guy
sure.
that's telling me, if you don't finish your dinner now, you're getting it for breakfast. And that's that's what dads are. If you don't eat all your greens, you're not getting your ice cream. Um,
Yep.
and stop talking back to your mother. Those things, and that's what Dad was for me. He was Dad. And then, while I didn't realize the influence he'd had, but I was still proud of him because I grew up from a baby watching him on stage.
Sure.
Sitting on the side, in a stroller. And I was very, very proud. And then later on, I realized, and that's really because you hang around backstage, and you got Joe Brown turning up at a gig, you got Chaz and Dave turning up at a gig, or Brian May or somebody like that. And of course, while Dad's on stage and they're prepping to go and guest with him or just hanging around backstage, they're looking at me and going, "Do you realize if it wasn't for your dad?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, several people keep telling me this. Okay, you know, it must be true. I'm hearing it from many sources, you know, because I'm a kid of the '80s originally. I was born in '83, so you know,
Sure.
this all happened long before me."
That's just a fantastic. I mean, it's normally at this point I'd kind of ask you where it all began. I'm not really sure how to phrase that with you. It's even more difficult having heard your stories just now. But growing up, you, I guess, spent time with your dad. The older you got, singing and playing together. Is that how it sort of developed?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I was always attracted to the piano, so I'm actually a piano player. My dad
Right.
didn't believe me, even though everywhere we went, if we went to a show home in Florida, God knows he was so incessant about looking at show homes. But anyway, if they had an organ or a piano in the house, you know, my dad's looking at the covings and the swimming pool, and you know, working out all these things down. Like there's a piano in the corner, that's me, you know. And you know, eventually, because he said, I really want to play the piano. So he bought me a guitar. And
Huh.
yeah, I said, well, thank you. Wasn't ungrateful. You know, it's not quite the shape I was looking for, but it has a couple of strings on it. We'll give it a go. Didn't quite work out. I didn't really have the inkling for it. And eventually he said, oh, I'll send him to some piano lessons. That will sort him out. And I loved it. So I took my grades in piano and everything and ended up being Dad's piano player.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because, I mean, you became a part of his band. I mean, that's some apprenticeship.
Oh, it was a huge learning curve. I mean, because what happened for me was I was sitting, you know, doing my grade pieces. So there I am doing Chopin and you know, Beethoven and the rest of it, all the scales, all of the theory. But apart from that, I used to sit and listen to Fats Waller albums, you know, the old Fats Waller
Right.
EPs. Jerry Lee Lewis was a massive thing for me, Little Richard, and used to drive my piano teacher up the wall. He's like, stop playing those boogie woogie nonsense. I was like, well, can't stop me. And so there's me learning how to do stride piano and the rest of it. And Dad used to come and sit and jam with me, and we'd sing I Want to Go Home, or we'd do Lost John, something that had a good solid groove. And I loved grooving. So rhythm piano is my main thing, you know. And he said to me one day, he says, that's pretty good. He says, you're really really coming on with that stuff. He says, I'll get you a ticket then. I said, ticket for what? He says, well, a plane ticket. You'll come on the next tour. And I used to be his PA for a bit, you know, so I'd be that buffer zone and organize a few things. Bearing in mind, I was 15, 16. And I said, all right, yeah, okay, I'll come on the next tour. And he says, no, you'll play the piano. I was like, what?
Wow.
Okay. Yeah,
Wow.
so I then ended up
And
sitting there just going, right, I better learn this stuff then.
what was your first show with your dad? What was that like?
The first show was the Americana Festival in Newark in the UK.
Right.
And that was, I mean, it's, you know, you've got 20,000 people looking at you. So you think, well, I better not mess this up. And one of the reasons Dad wanted me on that tour was because he wanted to put a number in the set which he hadn't done since the 70s. And that was I'll Never Fall in Love Again.
Okay.
So he's like, I need the piano for that. Can you do the gospel style stuff? And oddly enough, the version that I was modeling myself on when I was playing was the Elvis Presley version, because Elvis
Right.
released that, and that was on Elvis's last album, that from Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee. And I think it was all
That was about
recorded in his house.
76. He did it about some
Yeah.
mid-70s, that, wasn't
Yeah.
it? He recorded it.
Yeah, it must have been that kind of time, yeah. And
Yeah.
and it's the arrangement for it, the string arrangement was brilliant. And I was handling the piano and adding strings at the same time at the time. So then to step on stage at the festival, you know, and fortunately I'd known the band for all my life. They'd known me since I was literally a peanut, you know, in mum's womb. And And so they were. I mean, I idolized these guys and their playing style, but it was nice to have these guys that we considered family on stage with me, coaching me at the same time. So I
We're
walk
going to
out on
come
stage,
back
set the
to...
piano up. Yeah, I
Go
walk
on.
out on stage, set the piano up, and you look out over this waiting audience while we're setting up. I think Paul, the guitarist, said to me, he says, "Don't mess it up."
Great
Bearing in mind,
words
I'm
of comfort
17.
for a young man.
Yeah, I'm 17.
um, Wow, I'm going to come back to "I'll Never Fall in Love Again." That's a big part of kind of your story, I think, so far as well, for a number of different reasons, for another superstar as well. So we'll get to that. But I wanted to ask you, and I don't want this whole interview to be, just about your relationship with your dad. There's a lot more to talk about. What was the biggest lesson, a musical lesson, I suppose, or otherwise, in fact, that you learned from your father?
When in doubt, do now.
Nice.
Yep.
I like it.
That was the key piece of information that Dad said to me. When you're part of the band, he says, bear in mind, you're part of the band. He says, if you're forgetting something, you're not sure where the next progression's going or whatever, when in doubt, do now. Because if you don't play anything, you can't play it wrong.
Do you know, that's probably the best ever piece of life advice, I think. Right, Peter, I want to get onto your career and that moment on The Voice. Now, that's to follow, but it's now time for tonight's competition. You can win tickets tonight to see Peter Donegan on board the QE2 later in 2020. Just make sure you're following this Facebook page to win. Question is, very simply, who recorded "I'll Never Fall in Love Again" in the mid-1970s? Very simple. Just put your answer in the comments, and if you're chosen, we will be in touch. Please like and follow the Facebook page you're watching to get news of our next shows and more chances to win as well. So I want to move on to The Voice UK 2019, just last year. This is where I guess a lot of people are going to be very much aware of you and your career now. It's an amazing moment. It really is genuinely an amazing moment. It's the blind audition. Tom Jones asks if you're any relation to Lonnie Donegan. Obviously, there's a positive answer to that. Do you know the song that he says that your father wrote for him? So, of course, just happens that you do. So it's week one of the auditions. There's you on piano, accompanied by Tom Jones, singing "I'll Never Fall in Love Again," a song that your dad wrote for him, apparently. It seems like a really impromptu moment. I'm wondering if it was. Now, I know The Voice was recorded live, so I can't work out that it's anything other than impromptu. Tell us the story.
Right. So for you guys, that was week one. For us, that was day one of two, because all of those auditions I recorded over 2 days. So that lets you know I was nervous already and very, very tired, because I'd been doing a gig the night before in a place just outside of Manchester. Bear in mind, this is all filmed in Media City in Manchester, Salford to be exact.
Yeah.
And after the gig, which massively overrun, which I was headlining and closing, I'd missed the last train into Manchester. Ooh. So luckily for me, a fan had followed me to the train station and said, "I thought you were going to miss it. Where are you going?" I said, "Salford Quays." He said, "Oh, I'll take you in." So bless him, he took me in, dropped me off at the wrong hotel, and then I walked across the quays to the other hotel. And I was doing that kind of, right, if I go to sleep now, I'll have 4 hours sleep. If I go to sleep now, I'll have 3 hours sleep, right? So I didn't sleep. Massive migraines, which I suffer with anyway. Just got into the studio. We set up, we did makeup. And I was in the studio from 6:30 in the morning, going under hair, makeup, costume, the whole thing. Then rehearsals, and then rehearsals again, and then rehearsals again. And a lot of waiting around and them telling you don't eat chocolate because it will affect your voice, which is true. Don't eat anything with dairy. Meanwhile, they've got all this candy for you to pick from, but don't eat it.
That's the truth.
Right. Okay.
Well, coconut as well, apparently. Never have a Bounty.
Yeah, never have a Bounty. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so all of that going on. And it gets to about 5:30, 6 o'clock before they say, right, we need you downstairs. And you go, okay. And I'm getting ready and just about to walk on stage. So I've been up for almost 12 hours now with no sleep. Did a gig the night before. And the nerves are racking because I've never done anything which has made me this nervous. I'm literally shaking. And also regretting the fact that I'd wanted to intro this song a cappella, just me and the guitar. Right? Because it's Bless the Broken Road by Rascal Flatts. And as soon as I started shaking and thinking like that, I was going, why did I decide to do the intro on my own? I know the reason why. It's because then I don't have an intro, which means it doesn't take as much time, which means you can do more of the song to make more of an impression. But bloody hell.
Right.
So I'm standing on the side of the stage. She goes, right, are you ready? I said, yes. This is the lady who's letting me up the stairs. You can see it on the clip on YouTube. I say, yeah, fine. I said, I'm waiting. So I'm nervous. She goes, okay, right, we're ready. 3, 2, oh, wait. I go, what? She goes, Tom's going to sing a song. I'm like, oh, Christ. So Tom starts doing some gospel number for the crowd on his own and kills it, as you can imagine. And I'm like, oh, good. I've got to follow Tom. Lovely. This is going to be a deflation for everybody. So you walk out onto the set. Chairs are all turned. I've got this, I don't know, is it 180 people, whatever it is. It's a smallish audience watching you, Stand there, and then for the longest time ever, I'm waiting for them to hit go, and I've got to wait for a guy that I can barely see in the distance to wave a white piece of paper above a camera going, for me to go, right? And I just start playing. I go think to myself, I go, right, you know what it is? Whether they turn, whether they don't, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's a nice bit of promo footage,
Sure.
So just go for it and do what you do. So I did, and he turned, and I didn't even see the turn initially because I had my eyes closed for what I was singing at that moment, and I opened my eyes and Tom Jones is looking at me, right? So I'm overwhelmed by emotion. If you look at the clip, it's a little bit hard for me to finish the song. Plus, I can also see out the corner of my eye my family and friends screaming, which is also very distracting,
Yeah.
And it was a massive sense of, oh my God, it's I'm through, to relief, to everything. And then there's also that slight bit in the back of your mind going, I got one turn, I might as well hit another note and see if I get a couple of others.
But I mean, what a moment, though! What an emotional moment! I can really clearly remember the camera panning to the side of the stage. There's your family, but it kept going back to your mum, and it was the look on your mum's face that really got me. Must have really got you.
She'd had a bad Indian the night before, but no, of course it was very, very emotional. And then after that, it was, Tom, so tell us, who are you? What's your name? So I said it, and he says, oh, no relation to Lonnie, like you've seen. And I said, well, yeah, it's Dad. And that flabbergasted him because I'd spoken to Mark, his son, afterwards, after all this has happened, and he told me that, knowing his dad, knowing Tom, that he would have gone on, he'd heard Donegan and thought, oh, no relation to Lonnie. Oh, well, Lonnie's the guy that wrote this big song for me, I'll Never Fall in Love Again. And probably go off on you sound a little bit like him and anything. Do you know the song and all that kind of stuff? And maybe Tom will go off and end up doing the song or something. But it completely knocked him for six when I said, yeah, that's Dad. He was like, no, really? Because he didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, Dad you can see that. You can see the look on his face, Peter.
Yeah, it was totally, a shock for him. And then when we went off to it, Tom asked me, if you want to do the song. I mean, we had to re-record him asking me because when he asked me initially, I'd already come down, and said welcome to the team and gave me a hug and everything. And then it was kind of, actually, do you want to do the song? And the producer's standing there and the camera guys are standing there and they go, right, this is great. Good. So can you ask him again? Yes. Okay, good. And that's when I turned around, I asked the band, this is all not in the footage. That's when I asked the band, I said, do you guys know the song? And they went, we know of the song, but not well enough to just do it. It's like, right. And the band leader, Dave, who, I mean, bearing in mind, the band are the best musicians that you can play with, and also really nice guys. And they said, but come on, you know the song on the piano you used to play in your dad's band, right? I said, yeah. They said, well, just play it acoustically. I was like, okay, right. And I said to Tom, I said,
Wow.
so I'll play it on the piano. I said, but what key do you want to do it in? And he went, I don't bloody know. I said, right. I said, well, I said, I think your original is in E. I said, but I do it in D. I said, I don't mind which way you want to go. And he said, I will do it in D. He says, it's lower, I'll sit down. I said, right, okay. And I said, right, 3, 2, 1, ask him again. So then he asked me again, and that's what you see. And I go and I start playing, you know. And I don't sing for ages because, first of all, it's, you know, the song has the 3 verses and choruses, which we actually did on the night. They don't show that, but that's what we did. And I'm thinking, first of all, you don't want to overpower it at the beginning, and let's let Tom sing it, and then if he gives it to me to do, I'll do it, you know. And that's where we went. I took a cue from him for that. And it was great. I mean, I've had a few people say, oh, there's no way the band could come in like that and know the song. Well, they'd heard the song twice round, you know, because it's a verse, a chorus, a verse, a chorus, a verse, and then they come in on the last chorus. These guys have got the gist of the song, which has only got 4 chords in it anyway, you know, so they get the pattern after a certain point in time.
But it really was. It was such a moment. I know you went on Breakfast TV to talk about it, and I was watching Eamon Holmes, very, very famous TV personality in the United Kingdom, talking to you about it. And his line was something like, he thought it was the greatest piece of TV. Actually, Eamon Holmes is right. It was tremendous television.
Well, thank you very much. Brief little back history. Eamon Holmes presented my dad with the Irish Post Award back in the 90s, actually.
He did. He has great affection for your father. I mean, it's just one of those things. One more thing on The Voice, and this is the choice of song. I mean, Bless the Broken Road is a Nitty Gritty Dirt Band song, isn't it? Originally, I know Rascal Flatts is kind of the American standard. It's one of those songs, I guess, if you got married in Texas, that could well be your first dance at your wedding. It's one of those at that level of songs. But it works so well on The Voice, I thought. I mean, Tom Jones spun for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, what happens with The Voice, a little insight is, I mean, you go through many, many rounds of auditions. It's not just, you know, you turn up and they stick you on stage. You go through many rounds of knockouts first, and they take it from several thousand contestants down to about 100 or so. And then they go, right, okay, give us a list of songs that you would possibly like to do. I go, right, okay, here it is. And they go, great. Well, here's our list. And you're like, right, okay.
Okay.
And I saw there was some Shania Twain numbers they had on there for me to do, and some other stuff. And then I looked at the, you know, Bless the Broken Road, and I was like, ooh, that's interesting. I like that song, you know, and I could see why they thought it would be a nice song for me to do. And I mean, that's when I sit and I you know, they go, oh, well, let us know which one you want to do, and then of course you pick your own arrangement, basically.
Right.
So I sat at home, did it over and over again. I looked at different live versions of it, tried to pick some different arrangement sections for it, came up with my own thing, which then I sent a demo off to their MD, Dave. And I mean, they work their own magic because they're just fantastic.
I want to talk a little bit about your career next, Peter. Just to take a very quick break, you can win tickets to see our guest tonight, Peter Donegan, on board the QE2 here in Dubai later in 2020. Remember, you got to follow this Facebook page to win. All you have to do is comment in the feed you're watching. Question tonight: who covered his father's song "I'll Never Fall in Love Again" in the mid-1970s? Put the answer in the comments of the feed you're watching. Don't forget to follow us on social media. More chances to win there. Instagram, you can find us at QE2 Theatre, at Big Fish Comedy ME, and at bookmyshow_UAE. And we'll announce competition winners on the Facebook page you're watching. So you need to be watching to win. So that's the story of The Voice. I mean, it's fascinating to see how that works and how it actually was impromptu. I want to get onto your music career, your own music career, because you have a very specific style and approach, Peter. But just to start off with, what did The Voice do for your career? How's that affected, where you're going?
Well, it massively boosted my social media following, for one. Which is
You're
very
an influencer
helpful.
now.
I don't know about that yet, but I'm
Right.
building. I mean, and it's I'm I still have to go against the grain a little bit because, and I say this in my live shows that I do as well online, and even like before the lockdown, every time I'm on stage. I'm very proud of Dad, as I think I've made myself clear on numerous occasions. And I normally include one or maybe two of Dad's songs in my set, but I'm not a Lonnie Donegan tribute show. And that's what a lot of people do expect, because my name is Donegan. They also expect me to be a Tom Jones imitator as well a lot of the time. They go, "Oh, what's new, Pussycat?" I go, "Well, not much, love, but, And meanwhile, back at the ranch, so people do get a bit disappointed. And I explain to people is that I will pay homage to Tom as well, because I'll Never Fall in Love Again. Dad wrote it. Tom had a massive hit with it. I went to Disneyland on the proceeds, and it was, and I'm very, very grateful. But I follow my dad's other, or probably the most important piece of advice to me, which was, if you have any chance of making it on your own in this music industry, you have to write your own songs. Yeah. And I've come across a couple of times live. One performance in particular, I was actually down in the sort of just on the borders of Cornwall, and I was doing a solo performance. There I was in the middle of one of my songs, "I'm Yours," and I go, "I'm yours," and this rather inebriated lady in the front row, she went, "Sing some of your dad's songs." Like, now normally I don't entertain these kind of outbursts like that, because she'd interrupted me in the middle of the song. It kind of peeved me a little bit. If somebody interrupts in the middle of me talking in between songs, then yeah, all right, we'll do one of Dad's. Yeah, there's one for you. But I kind of asked her, and I said, "Well, why?" She went, "I like your dad's songs. Is your CD player broken?" And she was like, "No." She said, "But you're his son." I said, "Well, you don't ask Kim Wilde to do Marty Wilde songs, do you? Or should we go and ask Marty Cyrus to sing Achy Breaky Heart and Old Town Road while we're at it?" And she was like, "All right, I get your point." I said, "Right." And then what I do is I'll sing one of Dad's Worried Man Blues, something like that, get everybody singing along. And then I tell them exactly what Dad told me. And I say, so in that vein, the rest of the night's dedicated to Dad, and I do my own songs.
I like your style.
Because, well, no, I don't want to appear disrespectful to Dad, because I'm not. I'm proud of Dad, grateful for Dad, everything. But at the same time, I'm Peter. And that's what I have to sort of, get across to people. And now I don't have that issue when I go to the States, because the people that do remember Dad, the States have a different, sort of mentality. They go, "Oh, your dad's Lonnie. Yeah, the Rock Island Line guy. Yeah, I remember him." And then they say, "So what are you doing?" And that's a different thing.
Okay.
So when I gig in the States,
it's a very different attitude, isn't it? You know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to stop asking you questions and stop talking about your music. I think we should hear some of your music. So this, Peter Donegan, is Superman.
Hey.
Looking out, another day of pouring rain, but this day I just don't feel the same, because I reach out and I feel the warmth of your love, and then I realize this day won't be so tough. Since the day that I met you, oh, there's been something I found. I'm losing weight, my feet don't touch the ground. But I ain't no Superman, but you can make me fly. I don't need no jet plane to help me touch the sky. All I need is your sweet love to make me a man, or better yet, make me your Superman. I'm like a cliche that's stuck on a replay, but you look so sexy when you sat in my Chevy. I'll say, no dream come alive, but I know that I've been asleep all this time. Not to kiss you tonight just wouldn't be right. It feel like a crime. You're a toxic bliss in your long blonde hair, and your softest touch is more than I can bear. But I ain't no Superman, but you can make me fly. I don't need no jet plane to help me touch the sky. All I need is your sweet love to make me a man, or better yet, make me your Superman. Something I found, I'm losing weight, my feet don't touch the ground. At night I sit and pray, thank the Lord for another day I get to be with you. I swear it's true, I ain't no Superman, but you can make me fly. I don't need no jet plane to help me touch the sky. All I need is your sweet love to make me a man, or better yet, make me your Superman. I ain't no Superman, but you can make me fly. I don't need no jet plane to help me touch the sky. All I need is your sweet love to make me a man, or better yet, make me your Superman. I said, better yet, make me your Superman.
Peter Donegan, that is Superman. Peter recorded in Nashville, Tennessee, I believe.
I did, 2017. That was my sort of debut EP, which I had the pleasure of going out to Nashville to doing, and that was an awesome experience.
I bet it was. Yeah, I mean that's. I want to ask you what bred this kind of love of country. I mean, I can track that from your dad's style a bit, but your music has that real feel of, I don't know. And I hope you take this the right way, a Five Brothers plaid shirt, dusty old boots, a pickup. I can see the sunset. It's got that sort of real Americana vibe. Is that reasonable?
It's very reasonable. You just described me. I used to work for Toyota, for instance, in Florida, and my favorite, car of theirs is the truck. It's the Toyota Tundra, which is the massive sort of F-150 style thing. And that is, if I save up enough money, that is what I want to get. I know it's not politically correct car, in today's, environmentally friendly things, but I mean, at least Tesla are coming out with the super truck, so maybe I'll be able to get one of those Cybertruck. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, the way you're going, it's more than a possibility. One thing I did notice actually last night, I was looking at your website last night, and you have a couple of endorsements. I know you've got one endorsement on the desk with you there, but you've also got a footwear partner as well as your Vocal Zone.
Yes, Vocal Zone
partnered with the Cowboy Boot store.
Yes, and they're up in sort of Sheffield area. And it's another Peter who runs that store, and great
Right.
guy as well. And yeah, I actually got my Lariat boots off of him, and they are what I wear all the time. They're like slippers. You know, they're absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant. I just never take them off. They're on stage. They're not on stage. And it's like
You are-
my wife's bought me trainers in the meantime, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm still putting the boots back on.
Do you think she's sending you a message? You've not got the truck yet.
Yeah, well, no, it's not that. I mean, when I was in Texas at the last writing retreat, for instance, you know, I had to stop off at some holes in the walls on the way from Lubbock to back to Austin and stuff like that. And one of the other writers I was with, who was from Texas, she was like, "Yeah, you'll still fit in around here." She says, "You don't look like you're from anywhere else." So I took
No,
that
and
as a
that's-
compliment, really.
Well, I mean, it's kind of important as well, isn't it? Because if your direction's really clear to me. It's very much that kind of country Americana thing, and I suppose the more you fit in a place like Texas, the more you can soak it up. That's going to come out in your songs.
Well, it is, yeah. And don't forget the fact, I mean, I grew up until like the age of 6 or 7, I think it was. I was in Lake Tahoe, California. While I was
Right.
born in London, I was only born in London. We were living in Lake Tahoe, but I was born in London just because my dad was doing panto.
Right.
And after that, I was in California, and then from there we were in Spain, but again in the middle of nowhere. We were around the corner from where they filmed all of the spaghetti westerns, you know, and then back in Florida, sort of Kissimmee, Orlando area. So I've spent more time there than not, and I'm a West Palm Beach resident now.
You are basically a cowboy, aren't you?
Well, a Roman cowboy, maybe. Yeah,
Right. I want to stop
I am
talking
a
again,
rambling
Peter.
man. Yeah.
You are. Well, you mentioned the word man. We're going to hear a piece of music from you. We have to hear this. This is from your rooftop session. So it's Peter Donegan.
Yes.
This is Walking Man.
Thinking low on what they say, you've only got yourself to blame for what you cannot do when the weight's too much for you. Always makes me feel so sane when I'm just walking, man. I'm the one who holds the key to my cell. I could go free. I'm the one must find a way if I'm to live another day. It all feels like a game to me when I'm just walking, man. Yeah, well, I'm just walking, man. Yeah, hope is in the distance. Love feels far away. Truth in every hour. Yeah, step by step I stumble through. I don't know where I'm going to. Well, I'm just walking, man.
So is that you playing your dad's Martin there? Am I right in that?
I've got two. I've got my dad's One of One,
Okay.
which he used to play on stage, which doesn't get as much of an outing as possible, because we don't want to damage it. And then I've got my
Sure.
own, which is sort of number 72 off the assembly line, I think, which,
Okay.
funnily enough, I got off eBay. And You know, well, the reason why is because we went out with, well, I'm gigging with Dad's guitar. I should have one which is pretty much identical. That way, there's no, to change any sound settings on the desk if you break a string on one.
Right. Right. No, it's just I remember it on The Voice when you handed it to Ollie Merge and you kind of said to him, "It's my dad's," and he cradled it. And did he hug and look after that guitar for you in his seat?
He did indeed. He did. I helped design that guitar, actually.
There is so much we could talk about. I want to just so that's Walking Man from your rooftop sessions recently, Peter. Your latest album is called Live. It was recorded, correct me if I'm wrong, at the old Decca recording studios in London.
That's correct.
You had loads of fans come in to watch the performance, hence the live. But it's also the same studio that your dad recorded Rock Island Line in. Is that true?
That is true, yes, because Dad recorded it in 54, wasn't a hit until 56, so we went in on the hallowed ground on sort of on the anniversary year to go and record the album, and then it was released on the same date, July 13th, that Rock Island Line was actually recorded, and that's also the date that we were doing this show behind me with Van Morrison and Billy Bragg and everybody as a celebration of that event, and they unveiled the blue plaque outside of the old Decca recording studios, which is now the rehearsal rooms for the English National Opera.
That is rock and roll, absolute rock and roll history. I'm not going to keep you a lot longer. Just a couple more questions for you. The future. What's your next single? What are you going to be doing next?
Right. Well, after this interview, I'm probably going to have a bowl of soup because I haven't had breakfast yet. But after that, I will be back on a Zoom meeting with my friend, another Peter. There's only Peters that I'm involved with in this business. And he's our friend, producer, everything over in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I would be if I wasn't in lockdown. And he's mastering now the next single, which will be Thank You, Texas.
Okay, and that's going to be out when it's done, I suppose.
That will be
Who
out
knows
when it's
now?
done, yes. Well, it's going to be, because things have been put, it should be out now, really, but because we've been delayed with everything.
Sure.
Because there's been other musicians that we needed on there, but couldn't get them until we could get them into a studio environment, all that kind of stuff. So we're looking at probably end of July release.
Okay. Final competition chance here to see Peter Donegan on board the QE2 later in 2020. Comment with your answer in the feed you're watching. The question, who covered Lonnie Donegan's song I'll Never Fall in Love Again in the mid-70s? I'm pretty sure it's 1976, but put the winner, the name, in the comments of the feed you're watching. If you're the winner, we'll let you know via the comments on that Facebook page. Don't forget to follow Theatre by QE2, Big Fish Comedy. Book my show UAE on social media for more chances to win and for more on upcoming shows as well. Peter, one final question for you.
Yes.
I've got to say, it's going to be a treat to see you here on board the QE2. It's some venue, it really is. What can Dubai fans of your music, fans of your dad's music as well, no doubt, look forward to at your show here?
Well, let me just start, first of all, by just stating that when I was there last year, the band and I had a whale of a time. It was absolutely fantastic.
Right.
I mean, we were going to Dubai, and we're like, really? They like country music in Dubai? Okay. So we didn't know what to expect, and it was, okay, the bass player had been to Dubai a few times with different other cover bands, but myself, it was my first time, and a lot of the other guys too. And I mean, number one, what a place, and the audience were great, and it was very surreal for me to go to Dubai and have people in the front row who I've never met before singing along to Superman, and I'm like looking at the bass player going, all right, this is pretty cool, so it was absolutely fantastic. So they can expect more of that. We're going to go do that. I mean, we're going to do the songs that everybody was singing along with last time, with the brand new things from the live album, as well as from the songs which are being worked on now, including the new single which will be out, which will be Thank You Texas, and anything else we've covered in the lockdown sessions. I mean, we'll also chuck in a couple of covers of things that have inspired me, some Chris Stapleton, some Eric Church, and we might go even real old school, do some Willie Nelson or stuff, things that actually really got me started in country music in the first place.
Do you know what? It's been really good to talk to you today. I really appreciate your time and looking forward to seeing you in Dubai. Peter Donegan, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you. Thanks for watching tonight. We're back tomorrow night, same time, when courtesy Big Fish Comedy. I'll be talking to a Dubai comedy favourite, the first South African comic to play Vegas, the brilliant Barry Hilton. Don't forget to check out and follow the Instagram handles for @QE2 Theatre, @Big Fish Comedy ME, and @BookMyShow_UAE. To get news of our next shows, please like and follow the Facebook page you're watching. Final thanks to Theatre by QE2, Book My Show, Big Fish Comedy, and H2 Productions. Thank you, Nigel, for production duties tonight. That's it. Stay safe. Wear your masks. Good night.